So in our last class, we went to this website, online Python compiler. I will share my screen. Can we see my screen?
Yes.
Sure. So I talked about output commands. I talked about output commands. I said when you use this word print, you can print anything. Print means display something, and when you click on one, it will display it. So someone in that class suggested something, that instead of using this platform, why not use a code editor? Since for most of our projects, you won't be using this platform. Instead, you'll be using a code editor or Jupyter Notebook or something like that. For now, I won't introduce us to Jupyter Notebook. It will be introduced to us in our second stage. And for now, I want us to get familiar with code editor. I want us to get familiar with code editors. So what I'll do is this. I message us on the group to install any of these three, either Atom or Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text. Have we all installed any of the three? Just one of them, not all of them. Just install one of them, either Atom or Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text. So for this class, I will use one of them. I will use Visual Studio Code. 1. 2 is this. Let's start. I'll create a folder here on my system. So I can call it Python class. I have this on my system. I can open it with VS Code, Visual Studio Code. So open with code. Just right click and click on open with code. So it's going to open it with Visual Studio Code. Let me close all these folders. And what we want to do is this. We want to write our code in a code editor. Then we will now run it on our device, on our system. So the code editor we are using is Visual Studio Code. Since my system is unnecessarily slow tonight, unnecessarily slow. So open it with VS Code. We have this. Then next, we want to create a file. You can just press Ctrl S to save this file. This is an untitled file. So when I press Ctrl S, it means I want to save this untitled file. So I can give it any name of my choice. I can just call it index.py. This is it. The convention, or the way you write it, is you give it any name, then you let it end with .py. That is, you use the py as the extension of the file. This tells your device that this is a Python file. You give it any name, then you say .py. So save it. With this now, I can start writing Python codes here. So let's start with what we did last week. Print 9. So when I save this, I want to run it. To run it, I can click on terminal 1, or I use the device inbuilt terminal. Your system has a terminal itself, or I can click on terminal. Well, personally I prefer using this device terminal instead of using the one in Visual Studio Code. No, well, that's just mine. So if you are comfortable with this, just click on terminal. Let me show us how to do it using this way. But I won't be using this channel. I'll be using the device terminal instead. But let me show us how to do it here, so that we can, in case you want to use this, you might be more comfortable with this. I think it's based on personal preference. So I want to use this terminal. I'll come here and say Python, then the name of the file. Python followed by the name of the file. What I'm just saying is this: Python, help me to run this file. I'll say Python so once I write Python index.py, it's going to run this file. I press enter, and I have this 9 here. I have this 9. So like I said, I won't be using this. Instead, I'll be using the inbuilt terminal. I'm not used to using this. That's just the only reason. So if you prefer this, it's fine. So instead, in order to use the device terminal, I come here, open this folder. Then at the top of this place, I'm currently inside that folder now. At the top of this, I just type cmd. If you are using Windows, this is the way you're going to do it. Just type cmd, press enter. It automatically open the device terminal. So now I'm currently inside my cmd, my device terminal, and I can run the same thing, Python index.py. We have the same results. Let's go again. Come over. Let's quickly summarize. Number one, we started with creating a folder. Then I right click and click on open with code. Notice you click on open with code, it will open it with your Visual Studio Code if you have it installed on your device. Then you can start typing your codes. So here I have a code which says print y. So this will automatically print 9. This automatically prints 9 for us. The next is how then do we run it, and I gave us two options. Number one, you can use the terminal in Visual Studio Code, and number two, you can use the device terminal. So if you click on terminal, then you write Python, then the name of the file. Then if you also use this, if you want to use this, just open that folder, type cmd here, then click on enter. Immediately you do that, it will open this interface for you. So you can type Python, the name of your file. Any question? Any question? Can we proceed? If you are following, say I'm following.
I'm following.
Okay.
I'm following.
Okay, let's proceed now. So everything we're going to be doing, we'll be using this code editor, Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text. but just get the logic. It's the same way. Create a file, and when it's time to run it with index dots the name, then this dot py. So let's go. Again, we talked about variables, and I said to create a variable, all you need to do is just write the name of your variable. Let's say I want to create a variable called my name. I can say variable my name equals to Taiwo. So all I'm saying is this: create a variable called my name and let the value be Taiwo. Then I said this allows us to reuse that variable name. To use this variable name again. Then aside that, we talked about casing system. We talked about different types of systems. We talked about the camel casing. We talked about the Pascal casing. We talked about the snake casing. These are some of and the kebabs casing. So, and we concluded the class by saying that for the rest of this training, we are going to be using the snake casing. So, okay, I also remember telling us that please. I'm apologizing in case I sometimes use camel casing. I'm already used camel casing, so sometimes you might see me using camel casing. In that case, I tell them my apology. As much as I realize that, I will change it back to snake casing. So today we are going to be looking at something we call data types. Data types. Data types simply means types of data. I want to look at something called data types. So data types means types of data. That is, what are the types of data that you can process in Python? You know, a computer is an electronic device that accepts data, then processes it and gives us information. So what are the types of data that you can process using Python? Number one, we have the integer, meaning that Python understands integer. In fact, I will group this into two parts. I can say I will say int, floats, boolean. So I'll first talk about this today before talking about other data types. I will talk about int, I will talk about float, I will talk about boolean. Then after that, we'll discuss others. Also, remember telling us how to comment out our codes. So I've commented this out. So the first is integer. Integer is anything that is a whole number. Python understands integer very well. So I can say variable num equals to 8. This is an integer. So the data type of this now is an integer of num, is integer. Then let's go to floats. Float is anything that has decimal points. So if I have, this is decimal points, this is decimal points. So this is a float. Then finally, boolean is anything that is either true or false. This is a boolean. This is a boolean. Anything that is either true or false. So for now, we are talking about these three data types: integer, float, or boolean. Integer is anything that's whole number. Float is anything that has decimal point. Boolean is anything that's either true or false. Now, I want us to note something. Anything aside these three is not, so to say, at least for now, accept that anything aside this three now cannot be processed by Python. Anything that is not integer, that is not floats, and that is not boolean, then Python doesn't understand. For now, accept that with me. Anything that is not integer, that is not float, that is not boolean, Python doesn't understand. Now that will now make us understand the problem now. If I say variable name equals to Taiwo, and I say print name, then this will throw back an error. That's because this Taiwo is not an integer, is not a float, and is not a boolean. So anything that's not any of these three, Python will assume that it is either a variable name or an inbuilt command. Anything that is not among these three, Python will assume that probably is the name of a variable or it is an inbuilt command. So if I come here now, let's say I have variable a equals to 7, then I have variable num equals to a, then I say print sorry. If I run this will work fine. That's because on line 4, I created a variable called a and started 7 inside it. On line 5, I'm saying num equals to a. This a is not an integer, is not a float, and it's not a boolean. So Python will now assume that, oh, this must be either a variable name or an inbuilt command. So it's going to search through the whole Python list and see if there's any variable called a. If there is, then it picks the value and sets it as the value of num. So this is like saying variable num equals to 7. Do we understand? So if you say print a, it will print 7. If you also say print num, it also prints 7. So anything that is not among these three will either be automatically assumed that it's either a variable name or it is an inbuilt command. In that case, if I say variable num equals to James, then Python will ask itself, is it an integer? No. Is it a float? No. Is it a boolean? No. Then it assumes that it must be a variable name, that is the label on a container, or an inbuilt command. And in our code, you will agree with me that there is no variable called James. We didn't create any variable called James. So this will throw back an error because there's no variable called James and there's no inbuilt command called James. Before we proceed, let me see if we have question. Any question? Okay, no message yet. Yes, you can. You can. So let's proceed. So we want to solve this problem. Let's say I want to create a container called name, and the value of name is, I want it to be Taiwo, and I say print name. Now we've already established that this code will throw back an error. That's because there is no container labeled Taiwo. So Python will throw back an error. So how then do we solve it? What we are going to do is we keep this in quotes. By putting it in quotes, what we are telling Python is that this is not a variable name. In fact, you are just telling Python that read it the exact way I'm giving it to you. It's like in English language when you put a text in quotes, what you are just telling that person is, I didn't process it, I'm giving it back to you in the exact way I received it. It means you are quoting someone. So what you are saying here also is that you are telling Python not to look for any variable called Taiwan, but instead to accept it the way it is and save it as plain text. You are telling Python to save this as plain text. So what you're saying is variable name equals to Taiwan, and with this now, Python is not going to look for any container labeled Taiwo. Is not. Instead, it's just going to save it as plain text. So when you say print name, this will print Taiwo. So let's run this file on our terminal. So we have this. Let's move on. Whatever you keep in quotes like this, or whatever you put in quotes, is known as string. This is another data type. Whatever you put in quote like this is known as string. So this is a string. Now, question for us. Variable num equals to 12. What data type is num? What data type is num?
String.
Int.
Okay, someone said int. Contrary opinion.
String. No. Int.
String. Now, this is a string. Whatever is within quotes is a string. Do we get it? Whatever is within quotes is a string. If it's not within quotes, then this is int. But because it's within quotes, it's no longer int, but now string. Now, why are we learning data types? You see, the data type of a variable, we tell Python how to process that variable. So the way Python is going to process this is totally different from the way it will process this. It's totally different. This is a string, while the other one is int. So the way sorry, I'm already used to JavaScript. The way Python is going to process int will be different from the way it will process string. Please keep in mind, the data type of a variable tells Python how to process that variable. And that is why data type is very important. We have other data types that allows you to store multiple information. We have the what's it called? The dictionary, the list, the tuple. We are not going to go into this for now. We are coming back to these ones, but for now, let's first deal with these ones. When we are done, we now come back to other data types. We are coming back to all these ones later. But for now, let's sit with these ones. Get more comfortable, get very comfortable with it. When we are done, we move to other data types. So now we understand what data type is, what a data type is. Let's do another interesting thing. We call it concatenation. 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 Concatenation is a process, or another name for it is also called string operation. Another name for concatenation is string operation. So concatenation is the process of joining strings together. You want to join strings together. It's like you are welding things. Welding. You want to weld, tie them together. Let's look at an example. Let's say I have a variable called name and the value is Taiwan. I have another variable called school and the value is, let's say, Lautech. So I want to produce a result that looks like this. My name is Taiwan. Okay, let's first start with this. I want to produce a result that looks like this. My name is Taiwan. Now, remember I said anything in quotes is read the exact way it is. So I can easily achieve that by saying print my name is Taiwan. I can easily achieve it by saying print my name is Taiwan. And when I run this, it's going to print it. Now, what do you think is wrong with this? What do you think is wrong with this? If I run this, what do you think is wrong with
I
this? Why
think
can't I run this code like this?
because of the space in between it.
Ma?
Because of the space, it
Because
is
of the
not. You didn't
space.
write. Yes, you didn't write it as.
Okay, let's remove the space. So what happens if I run this? Will it still print my name is Taiwo?
No, because there is no string.
Ma?
Because you didn't put the quote like the string.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Let's talk about what is actually wrong with this. You see, I can come here and say print name because I've already created a variable called name. If there's no variable called name, Python will shout, it will throw back an error telling me that there's no variable in my code called name. There's no container called name. Do we get it? I can come and say print name and this will print Taiwo. But if I say print name, what do you think I will say if I say print name like this? What do you think I will say if I say print name?
It will not recognize it, I think. It will throw
Is
back
that-
an error. I think it will throw back an error.
Oh, it's not going to throw back an error. This will print name. Okay, now I understand what is going on. Don't worry, you understand every bit of the explanation now. Let's go back again. Let's say I have a variable called 7 and I say print hey. This will print out 7. We've already established this. Now, whenever you put anything in quotes, what Python does is instantly it tells itself that since it is in quotes, I'm not to process it. I'm to give back to sender. I'm to give it out to this person the exact way it is written. So this will print out letter A. It's just going to give it out to you the exact way it is written. Meanwhile, this will give you 7 because this will go back to your code and start looking for variable called hey. Do you understand the difference? Hello everyone.
Yes.
Hello. Yes.
Okay. So this will print out the value of variable A by printing out 7. Meanwhile, this on the other hand will print out letter A because whenever anything is in quotes, Python will not process it. Instead, it gives you back the exact way it is. So if I come here and say print B, what will I say?
B.
B.
Ma?
Bring it back the exact way.
It will print out the
You
exact
get error
way.
It
because
will bring it back the exact way.
B is not declared.
It will print out letter B. Some of us are yet to get it. Whenever anything
You
is
get
within
B.
quotes, Python will give you back the exact way it is. It's not going to process it. In fact, it won't check whether there's any container labeled B. Because it's within quotes, instantly it gives you back the exact way it is written. So this will print out letter B. Do we understand the explanation?
Yes.
By putting something in quotes, you are telling Python not to process it. You are just telling Python, give it back to me the exact way it is written. So when I say print B, this will just print out letter B. So let's run this. What will this give me if I run it?
Seven.
What did it say? What will this give me if I run it?
It will bring back an error.
It will give back
Error.
an error because it start looking for container labeled B. It assumes there's a container somewhere labeled B. So it start going to your code, searching for that container. And since there's no container labeled B, it's going to throw back an error. Let's come again. What do you think this will give me?
Error.
Error.
Error, because there is no container labeled James. What do you think this will give me?
James.
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 Good. You understand this now. So once it's within quote, Python will just process it the exact way it is without, we just give it back the exact way it is without processing it, without disturbing itself to process it. Now from this point now we can proceed. We can go back to where we stopped. I can say variable name equals to Taiwo, and I can say print name. What will this give me?
Taiwo.
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 This will give me Taiwo. But what I want to display is my name is Taiwo. So instead I can say my name is Taiwo. So this will also print out my name is Taiwo. Now I now ask the question, why do you think we can't do it like this? Well, the reason is
Because
because
that would throw an error.
there is no container labeled mine.
My name is Taiwo. There's no, it's not a string
You said?
that is declared. My name is Taiwo is not a string that is declared.
Now, even if I remove the spaces, there is no container labeled my name is Taiwo. So for Python, we assume that if I run this, Python, we assume that there is one container somewhere labeled my name is Taiwo. And since there is none, it will throw back an error. So the only thing I can do is to put it in quotes like this, so that we have my name is Taiwo. Once it's not within quote, Python assumes that there is one container somewhere with the label of my name is Taiwo, and it's not looking for that container. And since there is no container like that here, there's no variable like that here, it's going to throw back an error. Any question to this point? Do we have any question? Okay, let's proceed. So we have this. But then there's still a little problem with this code. And even if you run this, yes, we get my name is Taiwo. We have this, my name is Taiwo. It's fine, that's the result we want also. But then there's a little problem. The problem is this. If I change this to Kenny, if I run this code, this will still give me my name is Taiwo. That means the Taiwo here is not the value of this variable name. We want it to be my name is whatever the value of name is. We want it to be my name is whatever the value of this variable name is. Meaning that since I've changed the value of name from Taiwo to Kenny, when I print this line, I want it to be my name is Kenny. Do you understand what you're about to do now?
Yeah.
Hello everyone.
No.
Do you understand what you're about to do?
No.
Yeah.
What you're about to do is this. When I change the value of this name to anything, let's say when I change it to Tolu, and I run this code, I want to see my name is Tolu. So my name is whatever the value of variable name is. That's what we want to do. So if I run this, this is still giving my name is Taiwo because that's what I'm printing out. Let's run it together. You still have my name is Taiwo, which is not the result we want. So remember the other time we did something like this, name, and I said if you print name, this will give Tolu. This will give Tolu. So we can now take advantage of it. If you want it to be my name is Taiwo, then we have to ensure that name is here. Are we getting it? This name must not be within quotes, because if you have it like this, my name is name, like this, My name is name. This will just print out my name is name.
Name.
If you just print it the exact way it is. So what we want to do is that we want to take this name out of this quotes so that Python can search for a variable called name. Since it's not within quotes now, it will now search through your Python codes and search for that variable called name and put it here. Do you understand it?
Yes.
Okay. Since it's not within quotes, it's going to search to your Python file and look for that variable called name. Then put it here. But there is a little issue. There's a little issue. The issue is this. You don't jump from string to variable. This is a string. Why this is a variable? You don't just jump from string and write variable just beside it. And again, you don't jump from variable to string. When you are moving from string, this is string, and you want to add a variable to it, or you want to put a variable beside it, you tie them together, you weld them together, you concatenate them together. So the syntax to concatenate them together is the plus sign. With this plus sign now, you are able to concatenate this string or to weld this string with this variable. The reason we are just adding this place is because Python doesn't allow us to just jump from string to variable. Instead, whenever you are moving from string to variable, you tie them together using a concatenator, and the concatenator in Python is a plus sign. Any question? Can we proceed?
Yes.
Okay, let's run it.
So I have a question.
All right.
Yeah, say the plus sign means we want to concatenate.
Yeah.
Now, must the plus sign be close to the double quotes, or we need to do spacing to give spacing?
You said?
Now, the plus sign is close to the double quotes.
Okay, yes.
Do we need to give spacing, or it's fine this way?
It will work this way, but it's fine to put spacing just to make it more readable. But with or without it, it will still work fine. It will still work fine. But
Okay.
this is more readable. By putting spacing, it's more readable. Let's run it now. My name is Tolu. So what we want to do now is I'll change this to something else. Let's say so when I run this, it will be my name is Taye. So we use this plus sign to tie them together. Now class work. Create a variable called first name. You can drop it in the comment section. First name, and let it be your first name. Create another variable called school, and let it be your school. Maybe the school you graduated from. So now give me a result that looks like this. Print my name is, in this case, this will be Taye, since the value of first name is Taye. If I change the value of first name to something else, let's say Kende, then I want to say my name is Kende here. Let's continue. Hi, let's say graduated from Alta. Something like this. So I want to say result that looks like this. My name is Taye, I graduated from Lautech. If I change the value of Lautech school to something else, let's say to OAU, then if I run this code, I want to see my name is Kende, since the value of first name is Kende. I graduated from OAU. Please, let's do this. You can drop it in the comment section. I'll wait for us. Or you can even, if you are with your device, you can share your screen. Just take permission to then share your screen with us. or you can drop it in the comment section. I'll be waiting for us. I'll be in the comment section trying to read it. Let's do that together. Yes, you can use single quotes to instead of double quotes. Anyone. You can use either single quote or double quote, it still work fine. Then does it matter
Hello,
if you put
Taye.
space between num and if I'm reading the comment section now, I'm answering the questions in the comment section. Does it matter if you put space between num equals to a? No, it doesn't matter. And in fact, it's good to put space. It makes it more readable. Then can we use single quotes when we declare a variable? Yes, you can use anyone based on personal preference, either single quotes or double quotes. Now, I'm waiting for the solution before we proceed. Okay, someone said he doesn't understand the classwork. Let's go again.
Your screen, please.
Okay,
Oh,
here is
exactly.
the classwork. We have two variables. One is first name, while the other is school. And we have the value of variable first name to be Kende, and we have the value of variable school to be OAU. So we want to print a result that looks like this. My name is, since the value of first name is Kende, so it will be my name is Kende. Meaning that when we run this file here, when I say python index.py, that's the name of the file now. I want to see a result that looks like this. My name is Kende. I graduated from, this will now be OAU. Now, if I change the value of first name to something else, let's assume I change this to, let's say, I change it to Nife. If I run this code without changing this part, without touching this part, I want to see, if I check this terminal, I want to see codes that look like this. My name is Nife. I graduated from OAU. Just the way we did the other time. Remember the other time we did something like this, variable name equals to James, and we put in my name is first name. I will comment out this for now. So if I run this will give my name is James. Now the beauty of that is that even if I come here and I change it to any name, let's say Titi, and I print this without touching this part, when I get to the terminal and I run it, it will be my name is Titi. That's because the name here, we always pick whatever the value of variable name is and place it here. It will place it here. So that's what we have to do. We have to create two variables. One is first name, the other is school. So I don't know how your code will look like, such that when I run it in the terminal, it will be my name is whatever the value of first name is, it will be here, and whatever the value of school is will be here. Do we understand the question? Do you understand the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be in the comment section. So let me go to the comment section. I'm waiting for us. Hope you are working on it. Hello everyone. Can we hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm waiting. Okay, I've seen the results. So let's copy this. Someone has given us result. Let's see if it works fine. Just copy it and see if it works fine. Done, I think. A bracket is missing to close this. Let's run it. See if it will have a result. There's something wrong. It's not working. Saying invalid syntax. How do I show you my screen? If you want to share your screen, click on this icon. This icon, when you over it, you will see you are presenting. Click on it. So after clicking on it, it will tell you, it will bring up your screen, then share it. You can say share your entire screen or share a segment. So share your screen. You can share your entire screen if you want to display your entire screen, or share a window. So click on this icon. So let me stop presenting for now so that everybody can. Okay. Yes, correct. My name is first name. I graduated from school. So good.
Hello, Taiwo.
Yes, I can hear
Is
you.
it okay to call you Taiwo?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I realized the other time that to concatenate, I could use comma also. So
Okay.
instead of using plus, I'm using comma, which makes it easily readable. Trying the plus is joining my sentences together, so it doesn't really make sense. I don't know if you understand.
Okay. All right. My name is this. This. Okay. Yes. Let's discuss this solution then. Thank you very much. So we have this. My name is this. I graduated from this. Now, let's discuss something here. In Python, there are different ways we can concatenate. This command is part of it. It's real to concatenate it. You can also use the format, which we're going to discuss also. But then, well, the plus sign, like you are following a general programming convention. What I'm teaching us is, I'm not just teaching us something that will work in Python. In fact, I'm not teaching us Python per se. I'm teaching us programming. And there's a difference between teaching us Python and teaching us programming. When I teach you Python, it means that when you get to a new programming language, you are going to have difficult time adjusting to the environment. But when I teach you Python, then it means when you get to when I teach you programming, when you get to a new programming language, you won't have issues adjusting to it. Like I'm teaching us general programming principles that will make it easy for us to switch, even if you want to switch to another programming language tomorrow. We won't have issues because you're already used to some things, and like we call some things conventions in the programming world. So in terms of the programming language, these things are very similar, or they are even the same thing. So let's look at, we use the plus sign, we use this, and we use format, and then proceed. We have this. My name is Nife. I get it from OAU. But then, if you are using the plus sign, let's discuss this. You will realize that this will give us a little problem. Now, this will give us, my name is first name. I got it from OAU.
Taiwo, I can't see your screen anymore.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now we have this. When you use comma like this, then you are tempted to believe that each is going to run fine. Yes, it's going to run very fine. But this gives us a little issue that you may not, like I said, while it's working now in another programming language, you might have a little issue adapting to a new programming language. Let's use plus and look at the difference between the results. Now, my name is first name. I got it from school. When we run this, you will realize that this first name and this is will be together. This first name and this I will be together. This from and this school will be together. Let's run it. Is and the value of first name. Is and Nife, they are together. This Nife and this I, they are together. Then this from and this school also, they will also be together. Which is actually fine because in almost every programming language, this same code will give you the same result in almost every programming language. Now, why is it like that? That's because programming languages have this general way of removing all these extra spaces while compiling it and processing it. It will remove all these extra spaces while compiling things. The only space it's not going to remove, or the only spaces it's not going to, they are those spaces that are within quotes. You see that it didn't remove this one because it is within this quotes. It didn't remove this name and is because it is within the quotes. But it will remove this even if you have 10 spaces here. It will, while processing it, it's going to remove all these spaces except those spaces within quotes. If I run this now, like this, when we run it, we still have the same result we had the other time. That's because programming languages have this way of removing all these extra spaces. Something like this, you still have the same result. So how then do we make it do what we want? Instead, I can put the space here. Since I know that it's going to preserve the spaces within quote, and this space now is now within quote, so you're going to have a space there. Then I can put another space here. This is now within quote. Then I can put another one here. Do you understand this? Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So we can run this. Then well, we can also concatenate using something called formats. We're going to look at it before we leave. We're going to look at something called format. But then I think, well, I want us to use this plus. That's because it makes it easy for us to move across programming languages. Whether you are moving to Java, JavaScript, Python, PHP, and other languages, then you still meet this there, which makes it easy for us to navigate to. Now, then let's look at, before we look at that format, I want us to note that you can't concatenate a number, whether integer or floats, with a string. You can't. You know, a plus is used for addition. Let's say I have num, and the value of num is 6. So I can say print num plus 8. So this will print out 14. This will print out 14. But I can't concatenate a number with a string. Let's assume this 8 is like this. Then I can't concatenate them together. This is a number. Why this is an integer? And why this is a string? This is an integer. Why this is a string? Whether integer or float, you can't concatenate it with a string. It's not going to allow us to. So if you run this now, it's going to throw back an error. How then do we do this? You can convert this integer now to string so that you can concatenate with another string. So to convert it to string, I'll just say str. So this will concatenate this now with this. Do we get it? I can easily say my age is num. My age is plus num. So this is going to say my age is, but this will throw back an error since we are not allowed to concatenate a string with a number. This is a number. So I can convert this to a string. Here. So this part now, we quickly convert this number to a string in order to make this concatenation successful. Do we get the idea? Remember I told us at the beginning of the class that the data type of a variable, we tell Python how to process that variable. So since the data type of this is a num, Python will not be able to concatenate it. And also I told us another name for concatenation is string operation. So they are mainly used for strings. When you now try to do this, it's not going to allow you to, except you convert it to a string. So here we are converting it to a string in order to make this concatenation successful. Any question? So this will be successful now. My age is 6. Any question? Can we proceed? Can we proceed?
Yeah.
Okay. Next is this. We've looked at output command to display things. We want to look at input commands to get information, to get values from our user. So we can easily say, there's an input command in Python called input. This input allows your user to give information, to collect input from users. So I can say input your name. So if I run this file, Python will tell the user to input name. So let's do that together. How we say is here, let's calculate everything. So input your name. So I can type name. You can see that this is blinking. So you can say Taiwo. Let's make it more readable. I'll just say input your name. Then I want it again. Input your name. I think this is more readable now. Taiwo. Then I have this. So this input allows you to get information from your user. So we can now do something interesting with it. We can say create a variable called name and say input. I'll say input your name. So whatever the user inputs or types there will be stored as the value of variable name. Whatever the user types there will now be stored as the value of variable name. We can now proceed by saying print, oh, I know your name. I know your name. You are. They're now concatenated to name. Something like this. So, oh, I know your name. You are. Whatever, you stored whatever the user types as the value of name. So I'm going to display. This is just print, oh, I know your name. You are. Then if the user types Taiwo here, this will be you are Taiwo. If the user type, let's say Tolu here, this will be you are Tolu. Input your name, let's see. And I press enter. Oh, I know your name. You are Taiwo. Any question? Now, there's something now interesting about this. Whatever the user types inside this place is a string, irrespective of data type. Whatever the user types there is a string. Meaning that if I change this to H and I say input your H, and let's just say H. So let's assume the user type 10 here, then it will be, oh, I know your name, you are that value. Whatever value it puts here is not an integer, it is a string, and that's why it will be able to concatenate them together. Do we understand it?
No.
Okay, let's come again. Whatever you get using input is not an integer, but whatever you get using input will always be a string. Even though if the user types a number, Python will convert that number to string automatically. Whatever the user types here is coming as a string, meaning that if the user types 10, Python is not saying 10. Instead, Python is saying 10, like this. Do we get the idea? Whatever you collect from your user using inputs, the user will type something that looks like this. Python will convert it to this. So if I say, oh, let's say I know your age, you are 10, but the 10 here, I want us to know that it is not an integer, it is a string, because you collected it using inputs. The user type is a string, not integer. If the user type, let's say 5.6, the 5.6 is not a float, it is a string. Python is going to convert it to string and put a string there. That's why it can successfully concatenate them together. Remember, I said you can't concatenate a string with a number. So, but then this will be successful. That's because Python is not seeing this age as a number. Can you see this is a string? It's not seeing this age as a number. Instead, it's going to be seeing it as a string. So whatever you get from your user using inputs will always come to you, or Python sees it as a string. Do we understand?
Yes.
Okay, let's on it and see. Enter your age. Let's say 10. You are 10. So the reason is able to concatenate them together is because this is a string, not a number. Someone wants to join the class. Welcome, man. Let's proceed now. Next is this. I want us to note something. What if, what if instead of this, I want it to be a number. I still want it to retain to be a number instead of converting it to a string, because I said Python automatically converts whatever you get using input to number. Look at the problem this might give us. Imagine I want to give a result that looks like this. Whatever the user types, I want to add 5 to it. So that I will have print age plus 5. So age is, let's say the user type 10 now. 10 plus 5, this should print 15. But according to this will never print 15. That's because you are trying to concatenate an integer, a string with an integer. So instead, it's going to throw back an error. Do you understand what's going on? Age is a string since you are getting it via inputs. And here you are trying to print age, whatever the user type here, plus 5. So meaning that if the user should type 10, you want to print 15 because that would be 10 plus 5. If the user type, let's say 20, you want to print 25, that is 20 plus 5. But Python is not going to be able to concatenate them together. That's because you don't concatenate a string with an integer. So it's not going to be successful. This will throw back an error. Do you understand the reason this will throw back an error?
Yes.
Okay. Let's run this. So we have this error. So what you need to do is we need to find a way of converting this integer, this string to an integer. So you can do it here. So it's going to convert this this string now. It will convert it to an integer, then add it to 5. So this will print the right answer. So let's say I type 40. This gives 45. Now, if you want to be using it as an integer at all times, then it's advisable that you do it here instead of doing it here. What do I mean? Let's say at another point in your code, you want to do something like this again. Print age times 5. So let's assume the user type 10 here. 10 times 5 will be 50. But if it's a string, what Python is going to do is it's going to write it 5 times. That's where Python handles it. It's going to, once you're trying to multiply something, a string, it's going to write it 5 times. Let's first run this so that you understand what I'm saying. Let me clear this screen. So let's say I run this file now. And I type 20. So can you see the 25 times 20, 20, 20, 20, 20? That's because it's a string. So instead, I want it to be 50. That is 20 times 5, it should be 100. So I can convert it again to int here and say 20 times 5. So this gives 100. So meaning that if I want to use this age as integer 10 times, then it means I have to keep putting ints at all times, which is not cool enough. Instead, I can do something else. I can remove this int here. Instead, I will now convert it to int right from this place. So immediately the user types the number now, Python will automatically convert it to integer right from this place, so that the value of age will always be integer. So at that point now, I don't need to convert it to integer here, and I don't need to convert it to integer here, since it's already in int. Do we understand?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
okay, good. I can say 20 now. we have 25 and 100. So let's look at the formats, how you can use format to also concatenate before we go. So let's say I have a variable called name, and the value of name is Taiwo, and I have another variable called, let's say, department, and the value of department is software. I can now say print my name is name. Come on, okay. Can say print my name is 0 starting one. So that's format name department. So let's see what happens here. Name department. My name is 0. 0 means pick the in programming most times we start counting from 0, not 1. Most times we start counting from 0, not 1. So what this is going to do is this. It's going to pick the first value inside this format and place it here. Then this one is the second value. To pick the second value here and place it here. So this gives you my name is Taiwo studying software. Do we get how this works? Do we get how this works? My name is 0. So it's going to come to this format and pick the first value here and place it here. Then when it sees 1, it comes and pick the second value, because in programming, like I said, most time we start counting from 0, not 1. So it picks the second value here now and places it here. So we still have the same results. My name is Taiwo, studying software. And also, you don't need to start adding plus and everything to join things together now. So we can also concatenate using this format. But for the rest of this class, we are going to be using the plus sign based on personal preference. But well, I would advise that maybe use plus sign so that in case you get to other programming languages, you're already used to it. You don't get you won't just you won't be adapting to that language. It's now natural. Any question? Any question? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
The question is, when you are using the parentheses like the brackets, is there any form of bracket, or you can just use it? Because I can see the one you are using here is different from the one you use from the name and department.
Okay. This format is a function. It's like it's an inbuilt function like print. When you're using inbuilt function, you use this braces like this. So this inside this bracket, we now have this. But this is curly braces. The one here is curly braces, while the one here is just normal braces. Do you get it? What Python
Sorry, I
does
didn't
is,
get it.
you said,
I didn't get that.
one, while you are within this place, within this quotes, you use curly
Okay.
braces. While you are
Okay.
here, within formats now, you use the normal braces like this, normal brackets like this.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
You're welcome. Now,
Hi, Taiwo.
yes, sir.
Sorry to draw you back.
Okay.
I don't quite understand when you talked about inputs and adding integers.
Okay. Okay. Let's go back. So I said when you use this word input, Python allows you to get input from your user. So I can
Mm-hmm.
say input name. So this allows the user to type input. So when I run this file, name. So whatever the user type here now, you can now store it inside another variable. This word input allows you to get input from your user. Next is this. You can now store this, whatever value, whatever information you get here, you can now store it as a variable. So I can now say this. That is, the user will type name here, or whatever the user types here is now assigned to variable name. To make it more readable, I can say type your name. So whatever the user types here is assigned to variable name. So we can come here and say print name. So let's come here now. Type your name. So it's printing, this is going to print name. Then I proceeded to say this input only takes in, or whatever you type inside this input, or whatever the user types in this input, is seen as a string. Even if the user types a number, Python sees it as a string. So if you want to check the data type of everything, just use this word type. Type. This will tell you the data type of that thing. So whatever the user types here, whatever, Python sees it as a string. So let's come here and say, once I type 10 is a string, even though 10 should be an integer, but Python sees it as a string. So the issue now is this: sometimes you want to use whatever the user type here as a number, not as a string. Maybe as an integer, maybe as a float, not as a string sometimes. Because imagine you want to get your user's age, and I want to say whatever the user types, help me to add 5 to it and print the result out. So I can say print age plus 5. But before now, we've already established that you can't concatenate a string with an integer. You can't. Python is going to throw back an error. And we already said that whatever the user types here is a string, not an integer, not a float. Is going to always be treated as though it is a string. So, and you can concatenate a string with an integer. It throw back an error. If you run this now, this will throw back, and let's say I type this, it's going to throw back an error. It's unable to concatenate a string with an integer. So instead, we can convert this now to integer 2. So that whatever the user types here is assigned to age, and we are now converting this age to integer in order to be able to add it to 5. So let's say this becomes 45. Then another proceeded to say that, let's assume we want to use this age as an integer multiple times, not just at a single location. At this point, we are only using it here, but let's assume you want to use it as an integer multiple times. Meaning maybe at some other point in your code, you want to do something like this, age times 5. Remember, age is a string. So when you say age times 5, it will be treated as a string. And the way Python handles multiplication of string is that it's going to write that string at this particular number of times, meaning that it will write whatever the user types here 5 times. That's the way it handles string. So let's run it. So let's say 15. The first one is handled well, but the second one is handled as a string. That's because we converted the first one to integer, but we are not converting the second one to integer. So we can say int like this. So this is also converted to integer, and this now will be handled as integer, not as a string. So this is fine. But then, and I would say the better way to do this is, instead of writing it here now, since you're going to be converting it to integer multiple times, then why not convert this to integer right here before saving it as value of variable age? So what we are doing here is we are getting inputs from user, and immediately we are converting it to an integer, then saving it as variable age. So integer age now is no longer a string. Age will now be seen as an integer. So with this now, we can add 5 to it. Here, we can multiply it by 5. Do we understand?
Yes.
Okay. So this is fine now. We can run this, and we have this. So that's for now. Now let's proceed to, let's talk about assignment for the day. Then in our next class, we are going to be looking at something called if statements. Looking at something called if statements. But our assignment for the day is this. You want to get some information from your users. You want to get the name of your user. That is, we tell the user to type their name. So enter your name. Tell the user to enter your name. Then you also tell your user to enter their age. Enter your age. Then you now say, hello, you print out a result that looks like this. Hello, let's assume the user type here, and the user type, let's say 15 here. You now give us a result that looks like this. When we run it, say, hello, Taye, you will be 20 years old in 5 years time. So this is what you have to do. Tell the user to enter their name or user name. So let's assume the user types Taye. Then enter your age. Let's assume the user type 15. You're not going to say hello, whatever the user type here. This becomes hello Taye. You will be, whatever the user type here, add 5 to it. That's 20 years old in 5 years time. So I will see these results. Do you get what you have to do?
No.
Okay, I come again. You are going to write your codes. In your code, when I run it here, when you run it in the terminal, it will tell the user to enter their name. Enter your name. The same way we have enter your name or type your name here. So you are trying to collect information from your user. So you say enter your name. User will type his or her name and press enter. After that, it will say enter your age. The user will type his or her age, then press enter. Then, after the user press enter to this now, it's going to now give us a result that looks like this. Let me close this up. So it's now going to give us a result that looks like this. Hello, Taye. The reason you have Taye is because let's assume the user typed Taye while when the user entered his or her name. Then this will be hello Taye. Let's assume the user typed let's say James here now. This will be hello James. Do we understand it now? Whatever the user types here will be here. You will be 20 years old. The reason we have 20 years because the user typed 15 here. So let's say the user typed 30 here. This will be, let's say the user typed 30 here. Then it will be, you'll be 35 years old. Whatever age the user typed here, you will add 5 to it. So this will be, you'll be 35 years old in 5 years time. Do we get it?
Yes.
Okay. Any question? Let's have a summary of everything.
Taiwo,
Okay.
one last question. I've seen that you've been using your own terminal to run the code. However, I haven't been able to do that here. I've been using the Visual Studio terminal. And you show me how to, I know how to open my own terminal. I just don't know if it will run the code.
Okay. How to do it, you come here, open the folder. Let me go back to my desktop. I think the folder is on my desktop. So open the folder. Come here. Delete everything now. Type CMD. Then press enter. So instantly, it's going to open your terminal for you, and you will be inside that folder automatically. So you can now write Python, then the name of the file. So the name of this file is index.py. So just say index.py. Press enter. Is it working now?
No.
What error do you have?
It's telling me there's no such file in my directory.
Will you share your screen? Something else. The name of your own file is also index.py. If it's another name, then you use that name, whatever name it is.
It says index.py. I just don't know if I'm opening it because I'm not using Windows, I'm using Mac.
Oh, you are using Mac. That should
Yeah.
be for Mac. It's going to. Oh, it should be. Oh, I'll check that for Mac. I can't even remember now. Okay, this
Alright,
for
thank you.
Windows. This for Windows. So I'll check out how to do that in Mac. Okay,
Thank
let's
you.
proceed now. Okay, I think we are done for today. Any question? Let's do a summary, personalize everything, then we call it a day. Summary of everything. We talked about data types, and we said Python understands integer, it understands floats, and it understands boolean. An integer is anything that is whole number. A float is anything that has decimal points. A boolean is anything that's either true or false. So a equals to 7, a is an integer. A equals to 7.0, a is a float. A equals to 2, a is a boolean. So Python understands this three very well. And now is there to say anything outside this three is assumed to either be a variable name or an inbuilt command. So if I have variable, if I say name equals to Taiwo, the Python assumes that this name, since it's not this Taiwo, since it's not an integer, it's not a float, it's not a boolean, Python assumes that it must be a variable name or there must be an inbuilt command called Taiwo. And since it's not any of these two, it's going to throw back an error. So what I want to tell Python is, see, this Taiwo is not a variable name and it's not an inbuilt command. Instead, it is just my own text and I want you to save it like that. So what we do is we put it in quotes. By putting it in quotes, you are telling Python that what I have here is read it as ordinary text. Don't process it. Just save it like that. So Python will now save this name as Taiwo, as ordinary text. And I now proceed to say whatever is within quotes is a string. So even if you have a number in quotes now, this is no longer an integer. This is a string. And you can use either single quote or double quote based on personal preference. So this is not an integer, this is a string. Whatever is within quote is a string. So let's proceed. Then, how to check the data type of anything is just to say type name. Type name. So this will give out string. Of course, to display it, it like this. So this will print out string for you since it's within quotes. So this is string. Let's proceed. Then we talked about concatenation. Concatenation is you joining a string with another string or with a variable. And you don't just jump from string to variable. You need to tie them together. And tie them together, use the plus sign to concatenate. And I said for the rest of this class, you're going to be using the plus sign. So I can say let's see, this is, I say my name is, so I want to concatenate this with this. I'll say plus name. So it's going to pick whatever the user types here, then it's going to place it here. I mean, whatever is within this place, it places it here. Whatever it saves as the value of name will now be added here. So this gives my name is Taye. Then we also talked about getting input from your user. Then instead to get input, you use the word input and you type a text there. Whatever you type here is what your users see. So I can say input your name, input your name. So this gets name from user. It tells the user to input user name. But you can now save it as a variable. You can say username is this. So whatever the user types here is set as the value of variable username. Then we now said whatever the user, whatever it gets from the user using input, we always be a string. So you can now choose to convert it to any other data type. So you can choose to convert it to integer or float or anything. In this case, I'm converting it to an integer. I think that is summary of everything we've done today. Then I gave us an assignment. Any question before we call it today? Yes, I've already given you an assignment. I have here in the comment section. Can you give us some homework for practice, please? Yes, I've already given you one. Any question? Now, next class we're going to look at if statements. So how we stop recording now?